B'Shem Hashem Na'aseh V'Natzliach, Shiur Torah. We have a lot of things to learn today because first of all we start Sefer Devarim, which is in English is Deuteronomy. To be honest with you, I don't know what the word Deuteronomy means and how it's related to Devarim, but because Devarim means things, Deuteronomy does not mean things. But nonetheless, the English names of each parasha and each one of the books is actually a Christian creation. It's not a Jewish creation. But either way, it's good to know both because they've become so popular. The English translations have become so popular. It's important to know the names of both of the books, of both in Hebrew and in English, because sometimes somebody's going to tell you Mishlei, and you're not going to know that it means Proverbs, because Mishlei and Proverbs have nothing. They don't sound alike.
So what does the name in English mean of Devarim?
I said Deuteronomy. I don't know what it means. So you're reminding me of my flaws.
No, I don't say.
I don't know what Deuteronomy means. So we start a new book now. Parashat Devarim also always happens right before Tisha B'Av. Okay, Tisha B'Av. We're going to talk about it a little bit today. We're going to go over some of the halachot of Tisha B'Av. And this is a very, very important day for us Jews, because historically, most of the worst things, or really all of the worst things that have happened to the Jewish people throughout history have happened on Tisha B'Av. So it's very, very important to remember that on Tisha B'Av and actually mourn. You're not supposed to do a lot of different things, which again we'll go over. But once we do that, we'll go over into this parasha and try to see how some of the connection, not only between Parashat Shavua and Tisha B'Av, but also B'ezrat Hashem, we'll try to see how the Parashat Shavua is relevant to our life and what's happening today, whether it's the situation that's happening in Iran, or some of the new strange laws that are happening in the country and in the world. There's a lot of things that are happening around the world that it's very important to pay attention to how Hashem has already given us the information of how to deal with all of this 3,300 years ago. The whole point of the Torah is to improve our life. Torah really means instructions, oraot, orah. It's instructions. What are instructions for what? Instructions of how to live life, how to achieve your purpose in life. And we're talking before the Shiur, Nisan and I, and we know that there are many inventions in the world, whether it's a glass or a computer or an iPad or a car or anything in the world. And Rabbi Mizrahi goes over this in Torah and Science in all of it, many of his lectures, and it's a very, very good logical argument for anyone that's having trouble either believing the Torah, believing in God, or even if they believe in both, they're having trouble doing what it says. Now, as I said, there are many inventions in the world. Many. Anything that you see, whether it's even the simple bottle over here, was invented by someone, the book was written by someone, the phone was invented by someone, and so on. One thing we know for sure is that no one in the history of mankind has ever invented anything for no reason whatsoever. No one has ever invented anything with no purpose. The guy that created this, put together this glass, he didn't say, you know what, I want to make this glass. And when you ask him why did he do it, he said, no reason. What can you use it for? I don't know. No one, it's not a logical thing to do. The guy that had this glass wanted to use it to put something of liquid in it, or even some solid, something. It's obviously a container. Same concept with a computer or an iPad that we're using. The iPad that we're using was invented by someone in order to do many other things on the internet and so on. The guy that invented the iPad is obviously much more sophisticated than the guy that invented the glass, because it's a much more sophisticated machine. It does more things. The guy that invented, let's say, the plane, you have a 747, or now you have 777, commercial airlines, huge planes. They're like ships in the air. Amazing, amazing machines. The guys that invented that are obviously much more sophisticated than the guys that created the iPad. So this tells us that the invention, by seeing the details of the invention, it tells us about the inventor, how sophisticated the inventor is. Now when you look at the world, it's too difficult to judge. It's too difficult to even comprehend the entire world. There are over 2 million species. There are 7.5 billion people. Every one of them is different than the other. They all look different, even if there's some similarities. You're always going to have one person different than the other. And one thing that's very, very unique and very amazing about Hashem's creation is that no two humans have the same fingerprint in history. Every single human, even the identical twins, even Siamese, they do not have the same fingerprint. So you see things that are extraordinary. So it shows us the sophistication of the Creator. Now obviously the guy that created the iPad, he wanted people to use it. Now if he just gave us the iPad without any instructions of how to use it, we really wouldn't know what to do. If we just thought it was a glass, we would use it as something to serve food on. If he didn't tell us that you have to press a button and you have to slide your finger and you have to do this and it goes on the internet, you have to have instructions. Same thing with the glass. If we just saw a container, we would use it to put flowers in it. We wouldn't put liquids in it. The cup is obviously not meant to put a flower in it. Same thing with the plane. If we just saw a big piece of metal, we would just think it's maybe some place that you're supposed to live in, a shelter. Or maybe it's supposed to be something to defend yourself against the war, to hide behind it. Obviously we know that it flies in the air and it takes people from place to place. So every one of these creators, from the small to the big, has given us instructions of how to use it. Why? Because they want us to use it the right way, the best possible way. They know how to use their own product the best possible way. Because they created it, right?
Right.
So Hashem also created us. And Hashem created the world, and the galaxies, and everything in it, and the 2 million species that we see and know of, and the millions of others that we don't know of. And He knows how to use all of them best, and He knows the purpose of life best. He knows what's best for us, and He also gave us an instruction set. So what we're trying to do every single week, and Be'ezrat Hashem even every day, is read this instructions, see what it says, because this instructions will tell us how to use our life the best possible way, from the inventor, from the Creator. This is the instructions. Olaot is instructions. And that will lead us to have not only a good life here, full of happiness, full of fulfillment, success in every way possible, understanding of difficult times, understanding of good times, understanding of a purpose, but ultimately lead us to a much bigger world, a much better world, which is Olam HaEmet, the true world. Chazal tells us that this world is like a corridor. It's a small section in comparison to the real world. So if we spend most of our time focusing just on this small picture, then we're never going to know what the big picture, what the potential is. One way that you can understand it, when you're dealing with a difficult problem, it's very easy to get depressed. Whether it's because of a relationship problem, a money problem, a job issue, many countless issues, countless problems that people have. Very, very easy to get depressed when we look at the issue as if it's the only thing that's running the world. Why? Because we're only looking at a small piece of the puzzle. An easy way to understand that is if you guys, when you go home, or if you want after, I could show you on the big screen. If you look at the picture of the horizon, when you go to the beach, you go to see the ocean, you look at, there's several parts. There's, sand, there's maybe some grass, then there's the water where it first starts, where you see some of the waves, then there's the deeper water that's a little darker usually, and then you get all the way to the horizon. Now, if you look at just one part, if you look at just the beginning, for example, you look at just the sand or the rocks, you look at it for a minute, if that much, it looks like nothing. If anything, it maybe even looks ugly, unless you like rocks. If you look at the sand, it's interesting, a minute, 2 minutes, And after that serves no purpose. The waves, very calming, very interesting, but again, a minute or two, and you get bored. But if you look at the horizon, look at the end of the picture, you're able to look for hours. Why is that? Because when you look at the horizon, you see the entire picture. You see everything at once, and you see how it all comes together. So it's no longer just a simple rock. It's no longer just a little bit of sand. It's no longer just a few small trickles from the waves. You see how Hashem put this massive creation, and it all comes together. And that's what we need to do when we look at our problems. We can't look at them as if they're the whole picture. They're just a small part of the picture. Hashem didn't give us this problem as our life. Hashem gave us this problem as this is one pebble on one rock. When we look at the entire picture, it's much easier to get over these problems. It's much easier to get over the obstacles, because then you know that there is method behind this madness, if you will. So now, the beginning of this parasha, it starts with Ela הדברים אשר דיבר משה אל כל ישראל בעבר הירדן במדבר, בערבה מול סוף בין פרן ובין תופל, ולבן וחצרות וידי זהב. Okay. So this first verse, you could really learn quite a bit from it, but again, this is the beginning of Sefer Devarim, Deuteronomy, and just so you know, this book was originally written just by Moses, unlike the first 4 books that were given to us directly from God. God asked Moses to write what's happening on the 4th book, and originally this book was supposed to be part of the oral Torah. But after Moses completed this book, Hashem asked him to include it with the first 4 books. This is from Rabbi Yosef Dov Soloveitchik. He gave us the Perush. Giant Chacham, Kodesh Kodashim, very holy man. And this Sefer Devarim, this entire book, not just this Parashat, this entire book, or the rest of the Parashat until the end of the 5 books of Moses, is during the last 5 weeks of Moses' life. So unlike some of the other books, like for example Bereshit is a few thousand years. Okay, just the Adam Rishon, just the life of Adam Rishon, the first human being, was 930 years. Then you have Noah, he's another 600 years. You have Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. It's a lot. So you have, not every book is equal as far as years. It's not they're not the same. Exodus also took a certain amount of time, and so on. Leviticus, but the shortest amount of time is in Sefer Devarim. This is the last 5 weeks of the book of Moses. One machloket that they have, which is one, opinion where there's more than one opinion on, by the sages, is who wrote the last 8 verses. Because that talks about Moses dying. So did Hashem give him the words to write about his own death? Or did the next leader, which is Joshua, Yeshua ben Nun, did he write those last 8 verses? That's the only machloket. The rest of it we know that Moses wrote. So this is the last 5 weeks. And in so many words, what Moshe Rabbeinu is saying here is, Ela dvarim asher diber Moshe. He's saying, I want to tell you things that are going to be used by you for the rest of your life, of how to live your life. How to live your life with a purpose. Not just be like a bug or a monkey or some rock, but how to live a purposeful life and follow the God that gave you everything. Took you out of Egypt, created the world, and so on. But the way he wants to do it is by reminding them of what happened. Because at this point, we are 5 weeks away from going into Eretz Israel. We're 5 weeks away from going into the land of Israel, what was promised to us already since Avraham Avinu. Hundreds of years before this. Finally, we're in the desert for 40 years. We're 5 weeks away from doing it. We're 5 weeks away from crossing the border and going to Eretz Israel, where everything is going to change. We're no longer going to have the open miracles like we had in the desert, where Hashem gave us, food from Shemayim, the man, or the pillar of fire every day to give us light at all times, or the cloud that washed our clothes and pretty much allowed us to never take a shower because we were taking showers at all times, we were always clean. And the man that pretty much let us know we never had to go to the bathroom. All the way went into our bloodstream, we never had to go and have something that by itself is a miracle. The fact that you actually excrete all of the waste of your body is a miracle of its own. Shows how much of a perfectly well-oiled machine we are as human beings. So he's telling us that you're obviously at a point where you deserve to get Eretz Yisrael. You're holy, you're all prophets, you're all very, very, giants. But I don't want you to make the same mistake as your parents and think that just because you are giants in spirituality, that by itself is what is going to carry you on forever. You have to remember that in order for you to stay at this level, you have to, number one, remember where you've been, the mistakes that you've made and that your parents made in the desert and before, all the sins they made. But even more so, you have to remember that in order for you to stay this way, you have to constantly work at it. You have to constantly reconnect with Hashem on a daily basis. So Moshe Rabbeinu is starting off this parasha with somewhat of a last will and testament that he's telling Am Yisrael, and a message to the people that he's been leading for the last 40 years, and giving them pretty much, he's pouring his heart out, but he's starting with Mussar. He's starting with Mussar because Mussar is not just there to criticize people and tell everyone that they're doing everything wrong. Mussar is constructive criticism. It's advice that's going to help you improve your life. Baruch Hashem, we started a couple of weeks ago with the Shiur on Shabbat on the Path of the Just. Mesilat Yesharim talks about Mussar. Bezrat Hashem will continue to do it and learn how to improve our life in our connection with Hashem. But you'll see a lot of the lessons that Moshe Rabbeinu is doing here is what the Ramchal wrote about. So the first thing is that Moshe Rabbeinu wants to make sure that he's not offending anyone directly. He's not going to point at someone and say, "Hey, Rasha, you did this, and this on Wednesday. Hey, Rasha, you did this, and this on Tuesday." No, he's not going to do that. So what is he doing? You could open it. I think it's open. So he's saying,
Yeah.
he's saying, it's okay. As long as they come, they can call me whatever they want.
Hello.
Baruch haba. Baruch haba.
How are you?
Have a seat. So Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't want to offend anyone. So he's not going to call anyone out directly, but what he's going to do, he's going to name different locations. Different locations that Am Yisrael has been in. But if you notice and you compare it to the previous parashot, where actually talked about the different locations that Am Yisrael has been in, some of the names don't match. So obviously this is not a mistake. But Moshe Rabbeinu is mentioning the specific locations that we made specific sins in. So instead of saying, listen, Joseph made a sin on Tuesday, he's going to say, you remember Hatzerot? Everybody knows that there was a big sin that happened in Hatzerot, and it was Joseph that did it. That's just an example. Everyone remembers the sin of the Miraglim, the spies. Everyone remembers the sin of the golden calf. Everyone remembers the sin when they went to, they complained about not having water. They said that Hashem hates them and he only brought them took them out of Egypt to kill them because there's no food. The complaints. So instead of mentioning the specific sins, he's mentioning different locations. This is a very, very good midah. This is a very good characteristic to have for anyone that wants to give Mussar to anyone, whether it's your wife, children, employees, friends, and so on. To make people religious, to make people calm down, strangers, friends. Because if you start a conversation by telling people everything that they're doing wrong, directly, then they're immediately going to hate you. And someone that hates you is not going to listen to you. It's as simple as it gets. So for example, when you go to a parent-teacher conference, you have kids, you go to a parent-teacher conference, and if the teacher tells you immediately all the things that your kid's doing wrong, oh, your kid talks too much in class, and he's hyper, and he's this, and I think today it's become very popular to recommend kids to take Ritalin because every kid is hyperactive for some reason. I think they're just being kids, but that's just me. If the teacher immediately tells you everything that's wrong with your son, you're immediately going to hate this teacher and think that the teacher, which you're probably right, is picking on your son or your daughter. What, everything is wrong with my kid? Everyone else in the class is perfect except my kid, my poor little kid, that at home he's a perfect little cute thing, and in this class he's the devil? How can it be? So a good teacher, what would he do? First he's going to tell you the good things. Your kid is very observant, he's very smart, he's very creative, and get you to understand that there are some good things. And then he's going to give you some of the things that are not so good, that we can improve on. Same thing goes with religion. If you want to get anyone to keep any mitzvah at all, if you want anyone to even believe in God, first you have to level with them. Make sure that you understand where they're coming from. Why are they doing what they're doing, and why are they not doing what they're doing? And I always say, and I think this is 100% the case in all cases, anyone that's Jewish, that's not observant, is either because they don't know, or they don't believe. Either they don't know what the Torah says, they just heard some things from here in different places, and they don't know that on Shabbat, not working is not enough. You're also not supposed to do a lot of other things. You can't drive on Shabbat, you can't do a lot of other things. But you can also do a lot of things on Shabbat that are much more pleasant than the things that you're missing out on. Somebody that doesn't know is going to think, like I used to think, all right, listen, I'm not working on Shabbat, I'm not making any money on Shabbat, so to me that's keeping Shabbat. Little did I know that going to wherever I was going to is a giant violation. That was, if I didn't do tshuva, was going to put me in a very, very bad situation. On the other hand, most people don't believe. Some people outright don't believe in anything. Unfortunately, one of my best friends doesn't believe. He believes that there's some type of intelligent being somewhere, but almost like the Greeks, where they believe that something greater than us created us but left. That's what the Greeks used to believe. Some people don't believe anything created. They think everything came from an explosion. I have a hard time believing that anyone truly believes that, because it doesn't make any sense whatsoever in a logical standpoint. Because if you tell that very same person, listen, I just came from the bathroom, there was an explosion in the garbage pail, and I have a $30,000 watch in my hand that came from the explosion. What do you think? They're going to tell you you're crazy. I need to send you to a mental institution. They're not going to believe you. Wait, so if you don't believe that the watch that's on my hand, that says all the right numbers and everything is in place, came from an explosion from the bathroom, how could you believe that everything else that you see in the universe, that's all perfect, came from the same explosion? Something small can't come from an explosion. How could something big come from an explosion? And anyone says, no, but you have to understand the universe, and they start using big words. Usually people that don't have an argument, they start using big words, because they figure that if they use sophisticated words, you're not going to understand it, but you're going to automatically think that they're intelligent. It's very interesting when you know the meaning of those words, because usually you find out they're not using those words the right way. But what happens is that if they start talking to you about space, and you tell them, listen, you ask them a simple question. How many places like Earth are there in the universe? And the answer is 1. We haven't found any other place that there's life in. Okay. How many places can Earth in the universe, the entire universe, how many other places can the Earth, the globe, be in? Can it be in any other location? Meaning, right now we're close to the moon, but we have the plants look like a banana. The shape of the plants from the sun looks like a banana. And each planet is a certain distance from us, from the Earth. I'm not going to spend too much time on science, but just give you an example. Each planet has a certain distance from the Earth. but we are in a certain shape. So, for example, can we be where Mars is? Can we change places? We're going to be here, we're going to be where Mars is, and Mars is going to be here. Or can we be where Pluto is? So the answer is no. As a matter of fact, the answer is such a no, that if the Earth moved 1 degree, just 1 degree, it's 360 degrees, right? So 1 degree to the right, closer to the sun, we would all burn. Instantly. Everything would burn, Earth would disappear in a matter of seconds. If 1 degree further, we would all freeze. Just like the movies, the Ice Age, just like that. Just there's no little cute creatures. Which means that the Earth cannot be anywhere else in the entire universe. So the only place that has any life is in the only place that can have life. That cannot come from an explosion. Then? So now, how do we even get to this? But going into the issue of Mussar, is that if you're going to tell people what to do, if you're going to tell people, about believers, if you're going to tell people to believe in something, you have to understand their picture. You have to understand where they're coming from. What do they believe in and why? Once you understand what do they believe in and why, then you know what you're working with, and little by little you can build on top of that. If they like science, you show them scientific proofs of God. If they like spiritual things, then you show them spiritual things. Whatever it is, but you have to obviously know what it is. If you don't know what to do, it's better not to do. It's better to give them something or give them to someone that knows how to do it. Because sometimes when someone is very argumentative, when they like to argue their point, and you come from a religious standpoint, you tell them, listen, you have to do this and this, you're going to go to hell if you don't keep Shabbat, and you're going to do this, and you start telling them all the bad things that are going to happen to them, and then they're going to start arguing your point, and you can't really defend yourself because you're not really well equipped. In order to have a debate, it's not just about knowing your information. In order to win the debate, you have to know their information as well as them. That's how you win the debate. So if you're not well equipped, then not only are you going to lose the debate, but you actually make their case stronger in their mind. You give them another reason of why they're not going to do it. So if you don't know it, then it's the best thing to do is to give them a disc of different lectures, or give them to someone, whether it's me or anyone else that you know that has the information that can debate. Because again, it's important to save souls, but there's a certain way to do it. Anyone that's not doing it is because they're having a hard time believing. Because to believe that there's a creator means that I need to believe that that creator gave instructions. Because there's no such thing as a genius, supernatural, that's better than the inventor of this bottle, that's better than the inventor of the iPad, that's better than the inventor of the computer or the airplane we just talked about. He's better than all of these things. So there's no way that they all gave instructions of how to use their products, but he didn't. So if I believe in a creator, that means that the creator has something of instructions. If the Jews are saying that the instructions are the Torah, and the Christians are saying that the instructions are the Torah, and Islam is also saying that the instructions are the Torah, they also claim that they have additions to the instructions, but nonetheless, they all agree that the instructions start with the Torah. That means I need to read it. And once I read it, it tells me that I'm doing a bunch of things wrong. So it obligates me. And I don't like being obligated. So then I say, you know what, I don't want to read it and I don't want to believe it. So that's where the whole debate has to continue, where you have to prove the Torah beyond a reasonable doubt to a point where someone wants to keep it. Why? Because they see a benefit in it. As long as someone doesn't see a benefit in something, it's very rare for them to ever do it. So that's also a selling point, whether it's in business or in religion or anything else whatsoever. Moving on into the Parashat, moving on into Moshe Rabbeinu giving Am Yisrael Mussar. He's reminding them of many of the mistakes that they made. But like I said before, we're all frying today. If someone wants this, you could lower it 1 degree upstairs. 1 degree. I don't know. Today is the... So Moshe Rabbeinu starts off with a blessing. ואומר עליכם בעת ההיא לאמור לא אוכל לבדי לבדי שאת אתכם. אדוני אלוהיכם ירבה אתכם, והנכם היום ככוכבי השמיים לרוב. So Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, Hashem, your God, has multiplied you, and behold, you are today like the stars of the heaven in abundance. So Moshe Rabbeinu is telling us, he's blessing Am Yisrael, he's saying you're as many as the stars in the sky. Now we know we're not as many as the stars in the sky, not today, not back then. So what is he saying really? Rashi explains that he actually means in a spiritual level, our degree of spirituality and spiritual connection to Hashem was extraordinary, was beyond accountable, something that's countable. The Malbim actually says that we really were so great in number at the time that it was impossible to count us. But now, we also see this in a different parashat. We see this in Sefer Bereshit. We see it when Hashem tells Avraham Avinu that one of the blessings He's going to give Am Yisrael is that his descendants are going to be as great as the stars. But that's when Hashem says. But over there, Hashem says that you'll be as great as the stars, or greater than the stars. But here in Moshe, it's almost like he's telling us that we're like the stars. We're not greater than the stars, so he's almost limiting us. So that's when he corrects himself, and he adds another sentence after it. He says, Adonai Elohei avotechem Yosef alechem kachem 1,000 pa'amim vevarech etchem ka'asher diber lachem. So instead of limiting you with a specific number, even though the number of stars there are is 1064340 and 12 zeros after it that we saw from other shurim that we had in Masechet Brachot, we know that having a limit is not what Moshe Rabbeinu wanted. He wanted us to have the ultimate success. So he adds this, and he says, you're as great as the stars, but may Hashem, the God of your forefathers, add to you 1,000 times yourselves and bless you as He has spoken of you. So, whatever you are right now, may Hashem bless you even further. The spiritual level that you are, may you have even more. The material that you have, because Hashem, Am Yisrael is very, very rich, may you have even more. So the question is, Moshe Rabbeinu was no one was like Moshe ever before or after, right? Torah says it, Hashem says it himself. So what is Moshe worried about material for? You go to any rabbi in the world right now that's a tzaddik, that's really righteous, and the first few things he's going to tell you is disconnect yourself from materialism. Stop being so materialistic. Stop looking at your phone throughout the entire lecture. It's not going to run away. The text is not going to run away. Stop worrying about what car you're going to drive. Stop worrying about all the money you're going to make or not going to make. Connect to spirituality. Right? So why is Moshe Rabbeinu, who's bigger than all of us could even imagine, if the entire world was connected, I think maybe we'd become his shoe. Why is he worrying about materialism? Daniel, what do you think? למה משה אכפת לו ממטריאליזם? מכסף? תומר?
I don't think he cares about materialism.
No, he's telling them right now, outright.
No, he's telling them that they should have
more
than what they have.
Yeah, but they're already rich.
Right. Maybe he's foreseeing that they need to build a Bet HaMikdash and they need these things.
No, they have enough.
They have enough.
Forget about it. Okay, what do they need? What do they need more money for? What do they need any money for? Why don't they just say, listen, go into stay in the desert and just pray and don't worry. Hashem's going to continue sending you money. What do you worry about money for?
What they worry about money for?
Because the two and two go together. They both go together. Meaning what? You cannot have a life in this world without some level of materialism. In order to survive, we have to have food, we have to have money, we have to have shelter, we have to have all of these things. Someone that's going to be purely spiritual cannot survive. They have to eat. On the other hand, someone that's going to have their life constantly with just material is going to end their life here and not going to go to the real world. So both go together. And since he's talking about Mussar, since he's trying to help people's lives, he's telling them, listen, if you're going to help somebody get closer to God, let's say, for example, you want to give your wife advice. And you tell her, listen, you have to be a little bit more modest. Hashem doesn't like zima. He doesn't like when people walk around half naked. He doesn't like it. He killed 24,000 a few parashot ago. Just because he doesn't like it. Torah says you have to cover your hair. Torah says that a woman has to have separation from her husband for nearly half the month. So you want to give your wife all this advice all of a sudden. So she says, okay, Mr. Husband, I'm going to do it. But can you do me a favor? Can you buy me this modest clothing? No, what modest? I'm tight on money. I can't do it. All of a sudden you become Mr. Cheapskate. You can't give any money. All of a sudden we don't have any money. All of a sudden we can't do it. All of a sudden, listen, figure out another way. Sew a few dresses together, make one. Can't do it. Can't do it. First of all, if you're going to give advice to your wife, remember, you're not supposed to be her rabbi. Any type of advice that you're going to give your wife has to be done in a very, very careful way. Like, for example, I learned this thing. If you're interested, we could talk about it. Not just volunteer your information like you're Mr. Righteous and she's a Mrs. Rasha, or vice versa. She just learned something in a lecture, and all of a sudden her husband has to become a satmil. He has to wear the white socks and the big hat and everything else because she saw a shiur and the guy looked really good and she thinks it's good. You have to take it easy. Things have to go,
Step by step.
one step at a time. But again, if you're going to do it, you have to give the whole pie. You promised your wife that you're going to sustain her. You cannot say, listen, you have to be ultra-orthodox and you have to do this, and you have to do this, you have to do that, but you also have to be this little miserable thing that stays in a room and doesn't leave, and you could have to always wear, other people's clothes because I'm never going to buy you anything because I'm keeping my money because maybe I'm going to figure out a strategy to take it to Allah Abba. Right? So you have to remember that the materialism has to come with it. You have to take care of yourself. This is also very important for anyone that's watching that's a Talmid Chacham, anyone that's here that's planning or is a Talmid Chacham already, that's dedicating their life to purely learning Torah. More often than not in our day today, people that are learning Torah most of their time are not in a very good position financially. Sometimes they are. There are some that are very successful, but many are not. At least earlier part of their career, they're not. Some make the mistake of looking like they're poor, meaning that they're going to walk around with, stains on their shirts, stains on their, ripped pants. This is a major chilul Hashem. So anyone that is planning on being the part that's going to connect to Hashem and trust them 100% pretty much because they're not going to work, has to remember that they cannot look like a misken. They are a direct representative of Hashem, just like all Jews are, but even on a higher level, because they are pretty much telling everyone, listen, I can live off of man. Just like Am Yisrael lived in the desert, they trusted Hashem 100% and He sent them the food. I'm doing the same thing. I'm going to learn Torah and Parashat is going to come somehow. Fine, you want to do it, do it. But you can't look like you're some misken and you're collecting change in the street. So sometimes you see people that look like they're religious, but they have bad smell or bad looks, and this is a major chilul Hashem. So if you have the opportunity to get to know someone to the point where you can actually give them advice, you're actually obligated to tell them that they have to fix that. It doesn't matter how much Torah they know, because their Torah doesn't matter when they're pretty much doing a chilul Hashem every step that they take. So it's very important to look presentable. Regardless of whether you're Talmid Chacham or not, you're always supposed to look presentable. Talmid Chacham, it talks about in the Gemara, the level of punishment that someone would get if they just walk around with a stain on their shirt, knowing that they have a stain on their shirt. Just a stain. So the Torah is very serious about that. It's not something to ignore. So now Moshe Rabbeinu is giving us Mussar He's telling us some of the things that we did wrong. He's reminding us that despite the fact that we are on a very high spiritual level, the only way that we can stay connected with Hashem is by learning Torah, is by doing what Hashem said, and not just depending on our past. If we depend on our past, we're going to make bigger mistakes than our forefathers, and the reason why is because our forefathers saw huge miracles. Hashem didn't promise to show us these miracles. Moving forward. That's also one of the things that's very important to remember. This from the first verse, when he says, Ele advarim asher diber Moshe, when he's talking about Ele, he's talking about, this is a reminder of all of the miracles that have happened up to this point, that are not going to continue happening, unless you continuously have a solid relationship with Hashem. This first 5 words is one that you could do a shiur by itself, because this is actually teaching us that all of us are getting individual miracles every day. Some bigger than others. One guy will get a free house. Another guy will get a green card. Both have been waiting for 10 years for the same thing. Didn't happen. Started doing a few mitzvot. Oh, wow. Another guy's been looking for a zivug for 10 years. Finally found a zivug. Another guy is looking to get a job. Has been looking for a job 4 or 5 years. Got a job. I did a few mitzvot. Hashem gave me money. Hashem gave me a zivug. Hashem gave me all of these wonderful things. These are miracles.
What's a zivug?
Zivug, girlfriend, wife. Supposed to be. All of these amazing miracles happen. A guy crosses the street and a car almost hits him. Just misses it. He says, you know what, tomorrow I'm going to do a Sudat Udaya. I'm going to do a celebration meal to celebrate the miracle that happened to me, that I didn't get killed. So everybody comes, they enjoy, they do the blessing. The next day, someone else has, same thing, also Sudat Udaya. So they ask him, what, you almost got hit by a car also? He goes, no, I didn't get almost hit by a car. He goes, so why are you doing this celebration? He actually reminded me of how many times I crossed the same street and I didn't get hit by a car and I never did a Sudat Udaya. The miracle has happened to me every day that I almost didn't get hit by a car. It's just a perspective difference. I know, I only noticed it after he brought it up. So we have miracles happening to us on a daily basis. If we publicize them and we thank Hashem for them, then it gives him a reason to give us more of them. If we don't, if we conveniently forget about them, if we conveniently forget that Hashem gave us all that He gave us, did for us everything that He did for us, not only does He have a reason not to give us these miracles, but He's also giving Him a reason to take it away from us. So that's one of the things that it's important to know. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu is trying to teach us. These are the things that happened. Not just, hey, let me tell you guys a story. They already know the story. They lived in a story. They're in it. They're the characters in the story. He doesn't need to tell the story. He's reminding them of what they already know. Just like the Ramchal starts his book. The Ramchal starts his book. He's like, I'm not going to give you guys any chidushim. All of you know everything I'm going to tell you because it's such common knowledge. It's such common sense. Even though a lot of it is really not, at least not in our generation. It's such common sense that everybody already knows it. But it's so easy to know some of these things. But how we need to work on our midot, how you have to become, how you have to be pure, you have to do this, you have to do that, all these things. It's such, of course you have to do it. It's such common knowledge that nobody spends any time learning it. And what ends up happening when you don't learn something? You forget about it, and you don't apply it. And you wake up one day, and you look at what the Ramchal is describing, and you look at ourselves, and you're like, wait a minute, I'm closer to the monkey than I am to what the Ramchal is telling. It's me. I don't know about you guys. So that's the thing. So when we apply it, when we read it, we learn it, we apply it, it starts becoming part of us. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu is telling us. One of the other things that we need to know about Mussar is that Mussar is there. It has it's there to help our lives in a lot of different ways. But our life, in order for our life to advance, we have to make sacrifices. On Sunday, it's one of those days. It's one of those days that you have to make several sacrifices. Sunday is Tisha B'Av. It's actually the 10th of Av, but since we're not allowed to fast on Shabbat, we postpone it to the next day, based on the halakha. So we'll go over about 10 things that we have to do on Sunday, because this is very, very important. First of all, the fast starts at 8:11 here in our place. Anyone that's watching this, it's in a different location, have to look at ask their rabbi where it is. Our fast starts at 8:11.
What's the issue?
It's actually even slightly before. It's after Sudah Shlishit. So we have Sudah Shlishit, and that's the last meal. If you've missed Sudah Shlishit, then you have until 8:11. 8:11, no more food, no more drink. Now, unlike what many people, especially secular, believe, this is not an elective fast. This is not like, I could fast or not fast.
Yeah.
This is an obligation fast. This is like Yom Kippur. This is not like, you know what, I'm going to fast half the day this year. This is, if you value Yom Kippur, which even secular people value Yom Kippur, it's the one day of the year that everybody goes to the Knesset. Tisha B'Av, same thing. So, the few things that you're allowed to do on this holiday that we're not allowed to do on Yom Kippur, but as far as the obligation of the fast, it's the same thing. Second thing is that when you go to the Knesset for Mincha and Arvit, wear non-leather shoes, because by the time you finish the prayer, the fast is already going to start, and you're not allowed to wear leather shoes. It's one of the 5 restrictions in the holiday. So already wear non-leather shoes, whether it's Crocs or sneakers or whatever it is, something that's non-leather. So 5 things you're not allowed to do on Tisha B'Av is eat and drink is 1. Not allowed to take a shower. Not allowed to rub any oils or lotions. Leather shoes, as I said, and intimate relations with the wife. No intimate relations. Also, some people, recommend, generally it's recommended to not even touch each other, just like as if the woman is nida. But again, if it's the most critical is the intimate relations. The other thing is, you have a question?
No, I was going to say, actually before the fast on Shabbat is a big mitzvah.
Like Yom Kippur, same.
So if you really need Shabbat, do Shabbat.
Why?
For the fast.
Why?
To be with your wife.
To
It's a
get
big mitzvah on Shabbat.
intimately.
Okay, you guys can talk about that after that. We'll try to learn something else.
No, the
Whatever
Damet
you- it's your
Damet
business.
mitzvah, but no, Damet
God bless you, but not the time.
No,
So now, as far as the dishes for women, you have Sudah Shlishit, you have the meal in the afternoon. If you have a meal in the afternoon and you're going to have Sudah Shlishit in your house, then you're allowed to wash the dishes, because in essence you're using those dishes for Shabbat. But after Sudah Shlishit, you're not allowed to wash the dishes until Shabbat leaves on a regular Shabbat, because you don't need them for Shabbat anymore. Now this week, obviously you're not eating after Sudah Shlishit.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do with all the dishes? Either if you can't, if it's going to smell and create a difficulty, then if you have to wash it, first choice is use a dishwasher if you have one, because that's, if you wash them with your hands, then in essence you're committing one of the violations as far similar to a shower. If you don't have a dishwasher, then wash it with gloves where the water doesn't go through. Another thing is the Avdalah. On Saturday night, there is no Motzei Shabbat, there's no Avdalah. We don't do Avdalah until Sunday night. Okay, and when we do Avdalah on Sunday night, it's only with the wine. No besamim and no fire. Because the besamim is to appease the soul that's leaving your body on Shabbat, on Motzei Shabbat. The soul already left on Shabbat, so doing it on Sunday doesn't serve any purpose. And the fire, you already allowed to use fire already from the night before. So again, it serves no purpose. So only wine on Yom Rishon Balayla, on Sunday night. Also, you're not allowed to eat after. You're going to go to Beit Knesset on Sunday, of course. in the morning, at night, but you're not allowed to eat until after Avdalah on Sunday night. So a lot of people make these mistakes. I know I used to, where you finish a fast, and as soon as you see anyone with a cookie, you grab it to break the fast, like you haven't eaten in about 10 years, even though it's only been 25 hours. Don't do that. You have to do Avdalah first, like a human being, then you're allowed to eat. That's the halacha. Not allowed to eat. The only thing you are allowed to drink water, because water also could, create a difficulty as far as literally life. You could pass out.
If they
But
doing
drink like as much as you need, not as much as you desire. There's a difference between the two. But eating, you're not allowed to eat until after you do Avdalah. You get home, you do Avdalah, then you could eat. But don't worry, the little kids that are eating, leave them their bamba for themselves. You don't have to have a piece. You'll survive. Also, since it's a mourning day, mourning meaning you're supposed to feel terrible. Because the worst things in history, for Am Yisrael's history, have happened on Tisha B'Av. The first Bet Mikdash was destroyed. The second Bet Mikdash was destroyed. The spies, the Meraglim, came back with their bad report on Tisha B'Av, and which Hashem punished us for it because we started crying. He punished us for it, actually punished us to stay in the desert for the next 40 years. And we cried because we tried crossing the border anyway, but the enemy army, the Amorites, beat us up, and because Hashem said, I'm not with you. You're fighting a war by yourself. You can't war a war by yourself. So we started crying. We said sorry to Hashem. He said, okay, you're crying for no reason right now. The punishment has already happened. I'm going to give you a reason to cry. So all the worst things that have happened throughout history, even things including the Shoah, the Holocaust, a lot of the major events, terrible major events happened during Tisha B'Av. Countless things. Is actually my cousin, God bless him, he's writing, one of the books he's writing is about Tisha B'Av, about some of the things that have happened throughout history, and you wouldn't believe how many horrible things have happened on Tisha B'Av and even the week of Tisha B'Av. So we have endless reasons to cry on this day. So someone that doesn't cry on Tisha B'Av either is not acknowledging what happened during that day, or is crazy. Has no it's just a lot of things have happened that are really bad for our nation. Next thing is, so since you're mourning, you're not supposed to say hello to people. Don't say shalom to people. It's not because you don't like them. It's because it's not appropriate. It's also not appropriate to have a lot of small talk. Hey, how you doing? How's the wife? How's the kids? How are you? I know everyone likes to do it, myself included. Don't do it. It's not something to imagine. You're going to a cemetery to do a alvaya for, I don't know, just figure 150 million Jews at least that died on that day. Are you going to say, hi, how are you? How's the kids? How's everything? No, right? You're supposed to cry. Okay, so small talk, jokes, all that stuff, not appropriate for that day. Try to minimize it as much as possible. No one's going to beat you up with a bat if you laugh, but it's not the day to do it. Work technically is allowed, but not recommended. Chazal says that anyone that works on Tisha B'Av will not have bracha in that money. Now, when Chazal, just I want to explain this, what it means. I used to hear this from people. Oh no, if you work on this holiday, there's no bracha in the money. I'm like, bracha, no bracha, just give me the money and I'll figure out what bracha I have or not. When you don't know, you don't know. When Chazal says there's no bracha in the money, there's no blessing in the money, they're not meaning that, you're what we think. What they mean is that money that you're making is pretty much you're creating your own disaster. That money will be used for a disaster. Hospital bills, tickets, IRS audits, that kind of stuff. So in essence, working on that day, you're pretty much giving yourself an assurance that you're going to have the money to pay for this disaster. It's not really a good idea because you just might as well not have the disaster. If you don't work, you're not going to have the disaster. Right? So it's a good idea not to work. As far as Torah, since Torah is something that gives us happiness to learn it. You are only allowed to learn specific sections of the Torah. Sefer Yov, Sefer Echa, which is Lamentations. Yov is Job. Lamentations. Certain parts of prophets, but mostly is learning about the Bet HaMikdash. You can even learn about the Holocaust. Things that are depressing, things that have happened, things that are critical. That's a lot of people that are Talmidim Chachamim spend this specific day learning some of the parts that are hard to learn. The Choban of Bet HaMikdash is not exactly something that people want to learn every single day, even though it's extremely important. It's very depressing. But it's again Sefer Echa or Job. There's a lot of value to learning this Torah, but again, it's if you really learn the details, it's very easy to start crying. So this is the stuff that we're supposed to do. So Be'ezrat Hashem on Sunday, Bli Neder, I'm going to learn all day anyway. So anyone that wants to join me, we're going to learn Megillat Echa, Lamentations the whole day. So you can come to probably start at around 12 and go on until the end of the fast. Anyone that wants to join me can come at 12, can come at 1, can come at 2, can come whenever they want. And we're going to learn it anyway. And, try to connect to Chazal, connect to what happened. Traveling, walking around to see the view, no-nos. And also, last but not least, the most uncomfortable part, at least for me, is no sitting down on chairs. You have to sit on the floor, and you also have to sleep on the floor. But sleeping, you could put a mattress on the floor. You can sleep on a mattress, but it has to be on the floor. And as far as sitting, you can put a pillow on the floor and sit on the pillow. If it creates extraordinary discomfort, where you have some type of illness or something like that, then yeah, no one's going to beat you up.
On a low chair.
No one's going to beat you up if you sit on a chair. But again, try your best to not sit on a chair. So these are the things that are very, very important. Again, like I said, this is not an elective for anyone that wants the connection with God. It's not. These are not electives. This is an obligation, because if we think about what happened on Tisha B'Av, there's no way that anyone cannot be sad. So I'll give you an example. When the evil Romans came, destroyed Bet HaMikdash, started killing people, they didn't do it in a way where they came in and started shooting everyone. They were too evil for that. They tortured everyone, mentally and physically. So they come to Chazal, they come to some of the biggest sages in Am Yisrael, and they say, we're going to have a lotto of who we're going to kill first. So normal people, what do? They hope that their number doesn't come up. What does Chazal do? No, each one walks up, no, please kill me first. The other one says, no, he's the Kohen Gadol, kill me first, I'm less important than him. No, he's the big giant in the Torah. The other one, everyone is walking up, they want to be killed first. Why? Because they don't want to see their friends, their brothers, killed. Anyway, the Romans were disgusted by this love amongst the brothers, the Jewish brothers, and they said, we're going to have the lotto anyway. And they picked Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel and chopped off his head. And he opened. Rabbi Ishmael saw his head fall off on the ground, picked up his head and started crying. Looked at his face, started kissing his face. How could this head fall on the floor with all of the Torah that I listened from you, all the Torah that you shared with all of us? It was all like gifts. Every word that came out of your mouth was Torah. Never wasted even a word on nonsense. Not one word. Imagine a day, one day in your life. Imagine an hour, forget a day. 1 hour where you don't talk anything but Torah. It's not easy. This is a whole life. Every word that came out of his mouth was Torah. He said, this tzaddik, this giant, is on the floor. Cried hysterically. So much so that it got the attention of the Caesar's daughter. And she saw Rabbi Ishmael, and she saw how beautiful he was. He was a very beautiful man. Some of the sages were extraordinarily beautiful. This is a Gemara talks about Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan was so beautiful that his skin glowed. One day, his Talmidim see him in front of the women's mikveh, sitting. Say, Rabbeinu, it's not appropriate. We're telling the rabbi it's not appropriate. He says, no worry, I'm not looking at any of these women. I can't see any of them. I'm standing and say, okay, so Rabbi, why are you sitting over there? Why are you sitting? He goes, because I know Hashem gave me this beauty. I need to use it for something, for some type of mitzvah. So before each woman comes into the mikveh, I open my sleeve to show her my arm, the beauty of my arm, because if the woman sees something beautiful before she goes into the mikveh, when she comes back to her husband and they mate, the baby will come out beautiful. So even their beauty they use for mitzvot. Imagine that. So Rabbi Ishmael was so beautiful that the evil daughter of the Caesar saw him, and she went to her father and she said, listen, I want him, I want his skin, I want his face, I want it to become a picture. And she didn't relent, and the Caesar sent his soldiers and they peeled his skin alive. They peeled every part of his skin, his cheeks, and to make sure that it stays exactly the same. So they could put it on the mannequin so it looks the same. It doesn't move. They peeled his skin alive from his entire body. This is one of the biggest sages in history. This person has more Torah in him than the entire world today combined. All of the Torah that we have in the world today combined is not like this one person. And this is his end. So you tell me, is there enough reasons to be sad on Tisha B'Av?
Who is it?
Rabbi Ishmael. The story by itself is enough to be sad for weeks. And there's countless stories like this. Countless stories. People talk about Rabbi Akiva, how his end was. We need to know these things because we need to know our past. In order for us to have a future, we need to know our past. There was one fool that was a guard in an Israeli jail, maybe some 30 years ago. Obviously in the Israeli jail, there's a lot of Arabs. They tend to like jail, or terrorism, not really sure which one. And the Israelis walking around eating a pita with hummus. So the Arab says, hey Yehud, don't you know? The Israeli guy says, no what? He says, today's your holiday. It's Pesach. You're not allowed to eat chametz. What does the Israeli guy say? No, I don't connect to that stuff. That's for the old people. It's not for me. That Arab, he says a story after he came out of jail. He goes, that's when I knew we're going to win the war. That's when I knew that we're no longer going to argue and debate with the Israelis for parts of the land. We're going for the whole pie. Because a nation that doesn't connect to its past does not have a future. He says, we Arabs, we connect to our fathers. We connect to our past. We still live the same way. If you look at the desert, you look at some of these countries, nothing changed in 2,000 years. Same camels, same clothing, same everything. Even the billionaires, the ones that you see that have this plane and that plane, they still look exactly the same. They still connect. But we don't think, we have the Torah and we don't connect to our sages. So for us to connect on Tisha B'Av, obviously it's important every day to connect with the Torah, but on Tisha B'Av it's especially important because if we don't mourn for what's happened, it's very, very hard to connect to the Torah on a deep spiritual level because, again, you have to understand where did you come from? Why are you even here? Why are you a Jew? Why be a Jew? It's not easy to be a Jew. So, We'll learn a little bit about the difficult part of our history, and Be'ezrat Hashem, that will give us even more motivation to continue fighting for the truth. Moving on with the Parashat, Moshe Rabbeinu gives Am Yisrael the blessing, but then he starts telling about all the things that they started doing wrong. He talks about the judges, how to pick judges. One of the things he says, you should not show, if you're a judge, if you're going to be a judge, you should not show favoritism in judgment. Small or great alike shall you hear. You shall not tremble before any man, for the judgment is God's. לא תכירו פנים במשפט כקטן כגדול, תשמעו לא תגורו מפני איש, כי המשפט לאלוהים הוא והדבר אשר יקשה מכם תקריבון אליי ושמעתיו, ואצווה אתכם בעת ההיא את כל הדברים אשר תעשון. The key part of the whole sentence is that for judgment is God's. The reason why he's telling them this is because right before the sentence he's telling them, I can't be a judge by myself. I can't judge you all by myself. Now Chazal says this is inconceivable that Moshe Rabbeinu, that made all these miracles happen, obviously through God's power that gave him, but the point is that splitting the sea, the 10 plagues, getting the Torah, going up to Shemayim for 120 days, 43 times, winning countless wars, which 2 of them we talk about here, 2 giant armies, much, much bigger than us, winning huge wars. We were slaves just months ago. And we're already winning wars. You're not going to be the judge. If you can't be the judge, who can be the judge? You know the Torah. You know Hashem. You're the only one that spoke to him face to face. What do you mean you can't be the judge? Moshe Rabbeinu is not saying that he can't do it as far as be a judge. He's saying that he's too afraid to do it by himself. Because in a Jewish Beit Din, a Dayan, a judge, that makes the wrong decision has a Gzar Din Mavet, has death penalty, even on the small things. Meaning that if Joey owes Steve $100 in real life, but Joey somehow convinces the judge that he doesn't owe him the $100. But in truth, which Hashem knows, he really owes him the $100. Judge rules in favor of Joey. For $100, judge deserves a death penalty. Something as small as that. It's not just big things. That's what he says. Don't judge it differently whether it's a big case or a small case. So Moshe Rabbeinu says it's too much responsibility for one person. Too scared. This shows us how much Yirat Shamayim Moshe had, because he knew who he was dealing with. If only we can know who we're dealing with. I believe it's Rabbi Yochanan, but I'm not sure. And Gemara says that his students, when he was on his deathbed, the students came up to him and they said, Rabbi, give us a blessing. And he says to them, may you have as much fear in God as you do in man. The student says, oh, no, you mean the opposite. No. May you have as much fear in God as you do in man. So explain. When someone is acting like an imbecile and breaking the law and stealing, and he's a thief, he comes at night. Why? Because everyone's sleeping. He doesn't want anyone to see him. But then there's also, he's scared of the people. Scared of the cops, scared of the homeowners, scared of them. The eyes in Shamayim he's not scared of. The interesting thing is that if he was a robber with a weapon, not recommending anyone to do that for a living or anything, but if he was a robber with a weapon and he came during the day, his punishment would be less than the guy that comes at night with no weapon. Based on Torah, based on Halakha. I'll repeat this again. The guy that steals at night when everyone is sleeping with no weapon. No weapon. He comes at night, he takes a bunch of cash from the safe or whatever, he takes a bazooka gun, whatever he's taking. Steals it from the house. No one sees him, leaves. Eventually he's caught, prosecuted in the Beit Din. Another guy comes in the middle of the day to the store with a big gun, machete, and maybe a few spears. Says, give me all your money. They give him the money. He leaves. They both go to the same camp. They both get caught. The one that came at night, when no one saw him, no one saw anything, gets a much bigger punishment than the one that came in the open day. And the reason why is because the one that came at night is outright saying that there is no God. Because he's coming at night because he's scared of man. Not because he's scared of God. He's scared of man to see him. He doesn't think that God exists. No, he doesn't see him. The guy in the morning, he says he's not scared, not of men and not of God. So he's treating everyone the same. Rambam says that there's some people that have a disease where they taste everything the opposite. Something that's sweet, they taste it like it's bitter. Something that's bitter, they taste it like it's sweet. He says, us people, we are like those people when it comes to mitzvot. The good things that we're supposed to do, we think they're bad. So we don't do them. The things that are bad for us, the sins, the violations, all the crimes, that we think is sweet water. You already know. You already know. So Moshe Rabbeinu is telling us that when you pick judges, you have to make sure that you judge everything the same way, regardless of whether it's a big case or not, and do not tremble before any man. This is a very, very important lesson for rabbis. This is specifically for rabbis. Unfortunately, in today's age, the shul has become commercialized. It's become a business. Rabbis, Baruch Hashem, some of them make good livings. Some not so much, but it's their day job, it's their full-time job. It's a big request of these rabbis. Big demands of them. Unfortunately, not everyone delivers. And it's not because they don't know. Rarely will you find a rabbi who doesn't know the answer. They go to school, they learn. Some of them learn every day. Some of them are very, very big Talmidim Chachamim even. Rarely will you ever see a rabbi not know what the halacha is, if he's a rabbi already. But you will see many of the rabbis not tell people the truth. And the reason is money. Because the shul has become industrialized, it's become a commercialized, if you will, people become scared. They're scared of the big donors. They're scared of the board that controls their job. They're scared of turning people off. Everyone's scared of turning people off for some reason. They may not come back if I tell them that they're not allowed to drive on Shabbat. They may not come back if I tell them that the party they're having after Shabbat with the shrimp, they're not allowed to have it. They may not come back to the shiur if I tell them that their wife looks like a prostitute. They may not come back. This particular verse is right for them. Because Hashem is telling us, do not tremble before any man. If you want to be a fair judge, you want to be a good judge, you have to say the truth, because the real judge is God. You're doing this, you're in essence doing God's work. And God would tell her she's dressed like a prostitute. God would tell him he's not allowed to have the party with the shrimp. God would tell him that for violating Shabbat, you get the 7th chamber of hell. God would tell him. It's the worst violation in Judaism. You're worse than a murderer. I didn't write it, he wrote it. And that's what he would say. That's what God would say. He wrote it in Torah. So when you want to be a rabbi, you have to tell people the truth. Because in essence, you're a direct representative of God. So if you're not willing to tell the truth because you're so scared of people being turned off, then how are you any different than the guy that was stealing at night? How are you any different? You're scared of man more than God. Of course, everyone has their strategies. Some people say are very blunt, like I am. Not necessarily recommended for everyone. Some people are less blunt, but they say the truth in different ways, in nicer ways. There's a nicer way to do everything. There's a good way to do everything. But the point is to do it. If you have a member of your congregation that's been driving to shul for 15 years, you're not doing your job. I'm sorry. You should not be a rabbi. You can learn Torah as much as you want, but you should not be a rabbi. I didn't say it. This is what God says in this verse. If you're going to tremble from people and be scared of what they think of you, and they think of the words you're saying, which in essence is what God says, you shouldn't be a rabbi. Obviously, no one's going to listen to me. No rabbi is going to quit his job because of me. But this is what God says. They should read this Parashat. Moving on is that Moshe Rabbeinu reminds Am Yisrael of the spies. And he says that initially, when they told him, let us send men ahead of us, when they got to the border, instead of going into it, they were initially supposed to go into Eretz Yisrael right away. He says, let us send men ahead of us and let them spy out the land and bring word back to us, the road on which we should ascend, and the cities to which we should come. Let's send people there, check it out, and see what strategy to use to fight the wars that we have to fight, to conquer the land, and so on. And Moshe says, and the idea was good in my eyes. So I took 12 men from you, and 1 man from each tribe. Why is he reminding them that they all know this? They've been in the desert for 40 years because of this. Why is he reminding them? The real answer is that he's not reminding them only. He's reminding us. The idea was very logical. You're going to go into a land, before you're going to go into a land that many other nations are fighting for, you want to have a strategy. So let me send some spies, scout out the land, and go from there. It's a very logical argument. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu agreed. And that was the mistake. When it comes to God, you have to leave your logic at home. Our logic is what got us into a disaster that led us to 40 years in the desert and many, many other mistakes that continue on a daily basis today.
So they shouldn't send those 12
Yes.
spies there. They should have just went.
Trusted
and
God.
Trusted Hashem.
Right. God said that I'm giving you the land of milk and honey. Any nation that's there, the 7 nations that are there, you're going to conquer them. You have nothing to fear. He's God. What do you mean? I didn't take you out of Egypt, make all the miracles that I made just to kill you. Right? So what are you sending scouts for? For what? So a logical argument is what got us in trouble. And that's a logical argument is what gets us in trouble today. Every time someone doesn't keep something, it's because they have a logical argument. No one that believes, again, obviously there's the non-believers, but anyone that believes but doesn't keep, it's because they have a logical argument to it. I had a conversation with somebody one time, and he told me, listen, I believe in God 100%, but I can't keep Shabbat. I said, well, Shabbat, there's no Judaism without Shabbat. First 3 commandments is between us and God about, not having idols, Him being the only one, don't use His name in vain, Shabbat. 4th commandment. 6th commandment is murder, meaning that the violation for murder is less than the violation of Shabbat. It's also in the holy books, it also tells us the consequences of every one of the violations that we have. Violation of Shabbat, someone that doesn't do tshuva, never-ending suffering. Violation of murder has an ending suffering. It's suffering, but it ends. It ends eventually. It's a big deal. So how could you tell me that you believe in God, but you don't want to keep Shabbat? He tells me, my boss won't let me off. I got a job. I got to make money. I got to eat. My wife needs to eat. My kids need to eat. I need to eat. I won't be able to pay my bills. It's a very logical argument. But only if you don't believe in God. Because if you believe in God, then you know that God created the heaven and the earth, right? We all know that. God created you. God created your wife. God created your kids. God created the Torah. God created your job. Now you have the material world and you have the spiritual world. God wants you to be more in the spiritual world, right? Now, if you do more of what He says, He told you, learn Torah, keep my mitzvot. That's the purpose in life. So if you do that, why would He punish you? So you see that the logical argument is actually illogical. If you believe in God, there's no way that you can work on Shabbat. If you believe in God. Because you know that God is bigger than your job. And if you do more of what He wants, then He will do more of what you want. That's why Pirkei Avot says, "Ta'aseh et retzono retzoncha, u'ya'aseh et retzoncha retzono." Make His will your will, and He will make your will into His will. You do more of what He wants, and He'll make your desires His desires. But as long as you think that your boss is greater than God, you don't believe in God. Not the same God I believe in. You believe in a different God. Call him whatever you want. Call him Joey. Call him Steve. It's not God though. Call him Sylvester. It's not God. It's not God of Torah. It's not Kadosh Baruch Hu that's in His Torah. It's the same thing I tell people that don't believe in punishment. They say, no, every Jew has Olam Haba. There's a Mishnah that starts, Kol Yehudi yesh lo chelek le'olam haba. It's part of our prayer. Unfortunately, that prayer is misleading a lot of people that don't learn Torah, because the rest of that Mishnah talks about all the Jews that don't have a part of Olam Haba. Now, in prayer, we don't want to remind people of all the sinners, so we try to uplift people. So the Chazal only put the good part, to remind God that we're good. If we told God, listen, if our entire prayer was the tachnun, the part where we're beating ourselves up and telling everybody we're sinning, then we're mekatregim. We're pretty much reminding Hashem how big of a sinners we are. It's not exactly the greatest thing. We're supposed to repent, but not the entire prayer. So when people say, no, every Jew has Olam Haba, every Jew is righteous, every Jew is good, every Jew has Gan Eden, don't worry, as long as your mom is Jewish, you're okay. Chazil on Yom Kippur, no big deal. Don't listen to that. No, all those people that listen to the mitzvot, including Moshe Rabbeinu, flying. Yeah, they're suckers. They're just doing it for the looks. You don't need to do any of it. You and God, you'll figure it out. There's a guy I know, says, listen, I learned Torah when I was a kid. I went to a very big yeshiva. So I asked him, so how come you violate Shabbat? How come you violate pretty much almost every single rule there is, but you go to the Knesset? He says, no, we understand each other. So he tells me, we understand, him and God understand each other. I don't know, maybe he's bigger than Moshe Rabbeinu, because Moshe Rabbeinu was scared of hell. When Moshe Rabbeinu went to the border of Israel, Hashem showed him. He got to the border. One of the things that Hashem showed him, other than the land of Israel, we'll actually see this in next week's Parashat. Hashem showed him hell, and Moshe Rabbeinu was shaking, non-stop shaking, uncontrollable shaking, and he only stopped shaking when God told him, don't worry, you have no piece of that. You're not going there. Meaning that Moshe Rabbeinu thought that there's a chance he may go to hell. So he was worried. But the guy that says he went to yeshiva when he was 7 years old, but doesn't follow any mitzvah whatsoever other than going to the Knesset, which by the way is not an obligation, if it leads you to sin, he's going to figure it out with God when he gets up there. I don't know how that works. But according to this Torah, it's not supposed to work. Well, Moshe Rabbeinu says that after you got punished from God, God said that he heard the sound of your words and he was incensed, and he swore, saying, if even a man of these people, this evil generation, shall see the good land that I swore to give to your forefathers, except for Caleb, son of Jephunneh, he shall see it, and to him shall I give the land on which he walked, and to his children, because he followed Hashem wholeheartedly. So he says that, this is when we all got punished for the spies. But Hashem says that everyone got punished, they're all evil, except Caleb. And also after that he says Yeshua ben Nun, Joshua. Didn't get. But why? Because he followed Hashem wholeheartedly. He had real Emunah. Even though it was illogical. Even though when he came to the land, he was the one that saw the giants. Much, much bigger than us. He saw the same thing and more than everyone else. But when everyone else was crying and talking about all the bad things, the bad possibilities, Caleb had real Emunah and said, I'm not worried about it because we have Hashem. Hashem is greater than all of these giants. Hashem is greater than all of these giants. I'm not worried at all. He believed in Hashem with complete Emunah. That is our goal in life. That is what we all need to achieve. Real Emunah. Wholeheartedly like Caleb. That even when it's completely against our logic, completely against everything that we believe in, everything that makes any sense to us, we still do what Hashem wants. A good story is that when someone says, listen, I have real Emunah. He says, okay. One day that person falls and he's hanging off of a mountain. And he grabs on a branch before he falls off and dies. So he's grabbing on the branch. And all of a sudden a bat kol, a heavenly voice comes out from Shamayim and says, don't worry, I'm here. I'm Hashem. Oh Hashem, I always believed in you. I believed in you. I believe in you wholeheartedly. I knew you were there. I knew you were there. You believe in me? Yes. You believe in me? Yes. You believe in me? Yes. Let go of the branch. Would you let go of the branch? Would I let go of the branch? I don't know. That's Emunah. When you don't show up on Shabbat, despite what consequences there was going to be at your job, that's Emunah. When you tell people the truth of how Hashem said it, despite what consequences of how many people are going to like you or hate you, that's Emunah. When you give Maaser on a regular basis to Talmidim Chachamim and people that do Kiruv, that's Emunah, because it's telling Hashem, I know that Parnasai is from Shamayim. I'm not worried about if I'm going to have enough to give Maaser next month. I have enough now, I'm going to give Maaser. I made a profit now, I'm going to give Maaser. What happens next month, Hashem Yerachem. But today, I have to give. And that's also one thing that's important to do. I forgot to tell you when we spoke about Maaser. In general, with tzedakah, one of the obligations you have as someone that gives tzedakah is to write it down in a book. Make it very organized. It's actually an obligation to be organized in Judaism. You have to be organized. You can't be a mess. You can't just give like I used to give, where it's, yeah, whoever's in front of me, just give it to him, which, with an open heart but a small mind, where you just give, but you don't really know how much you gave. Get a little book, get a little notebook, write down every time you give this one $20, $100, $5,000, whatever you give, write down in the book. Why write down in a book? Because it shows how much you're telling God, how much you actually enjoy this mitzvah. Why does it show that you enjoy this mitzvah? Why does it show that this mitzvah is important to you? Because if I told you right now, listen, I was in the stock business, I was in investment business, you ask me about a business and I'll tell you if it's good or bad. You ask me about the stock market, the private business, public business, whatever business you want, I'll tell you whether it's good or bad. It's been my profession for 15 years. I've made some mistakes, but I've also made a lot of money at times. One thing I do have is knowledge. I'm not going to tell you everything is going to work out or everything's not going to work out. But I can tell you, for better or for worse, what's good or bad. And I'm going to tell you now, I have an investment for you. This investment is extraordinary. This investment is the best investment I've ever seen. I need you to invest all your money into it. For you. I'm going to give you an opportunity to invest in it. And you're going to tell me, I'm going to show you all the information, I'm going to show you ABC. And you're going to say, oh, this is good, this is good, this is good. You're going to agree with the investment. And you're going to make a big, big investment. You're going to put all your money into this investment. Now the next question is, will you track the investment? Would you want someone to send you some piece of paper every month or every quarter to tell you how the investment's doing? Mm-hmm. Would you care? Right? You would, right? Why? Because it's very important. Right. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. It's a lot important. Now when you go to Shamayim, the money you have you can't take. But the book with the mitzvot of every single penny you put in it, you can. When you show up to Shamayim, they're going to ask you to give tzedakah. And you tell them, yes, I gave tzedakah. They ask you, show me proof. You have a book. You're ready. On Monday, February 1st, 2015, I gave $300 to Rabbi so-and-so. On Tuesday, ta-ta-ta. Why? Because it's important, Hashem. I write down. But also reminds us of how much we're giving. We all think we're giving much more than we are. I promise you we're not giving as much as we need. It's very easy to think that we're giving a lot because you're thinking in large numbers. I go to a guy and I tell him, listen, this kollel in Israel has 30 giant Talmidim Chachamim. Mamash, people that are just outright like angels. People with a brain that's beyond our generation. Amazing people. Amazing midot. Good quality people. Live in outright poverty. No one complains. Amazing, amazing people. They just lost their biggest donor. I told you guys about this last week. They just lost their biggest donor because of some jealousy from a competitor. She had a hospital. This donor had a hospital. The competitor didn't like the fact that she was very successful and caused trouble for her with the government. Long story short, she lost her license and is no longer able to donate. Which means that this kollel will 30 families, depending on it, they're only getting, I think, 2,500 or 2,500 shekel per month, which is approximately $600. They each have a family of 6, 7, 10, $600 a month. Learning morning to night. This is not for 2 hours. We wouldn't even study for 2 hours for $600. They study for a whole month for $600 with a smile. Big Talmidim Chachamim. You have 30 of them that may lose their only job, their only thing that they do. Why? Because the kollel is only a month away from being shut down. If they don't replace this donor. So if I tell somebody, listen, you have this situation, this is a big deal. If their response is, you know what, I want to give, but I really want to buy this new car too. That person has no yirat shamayim. that person has no love for Judaism. That person has no love for anything. To be a partner, even with $100, in such a big mitzvah, being a small, tiny partner with 30 families, not only 30 families, but 30 families that Talmidim Chachamim, millionaire. And that person that gives the $100, or $500, or $5,000, or $10,000, whatever he gives, should write it down. Why? Because when he goes up to Shamayim, all the mekatregim, all the enemies, the demons that he created from sins are going to come to him and say, I was created on February 1st because he ate non-kosher. I was created when he did this and this. I was created when he did this and this. You can say, wait a minute, look what else I did. I gave a few $1,000s and 30 Talmidim Chachamim that learned every day. That month, I was a partner. Every one of their mitzvot, I was a partner in that too. It's a good investment. You should write it down.
So what's the pain in the college
What's?
with the 30 people?
What do you mean what's with them?
They found another donor?
No, we're looking for them. We're looking for donors.
צריך 18,000.
The amazing thing is I know they're going to get it. We'll try to help, we'll try to find people, but I know they're going to get it. The amount of Torah that comes out of that kollel, of course they're going to get it. It's not a test for them. It's a test for us. It's a test for the rest of us. Hashem wants their Torah. He loves their Torah. That's why each one of them lives with an outright miracle every month. But the rest of us don't have as much mitzvot. So Hashem says, okay, I'm going to give you this one shot to be a partner in this giant mitzvah. I'm going to give you a shot, an opportunity to be partners with giants. Some people, most people say, next time, when I have a little more, when I have this, when I have that. Everyone has an excuse for why. No questions about it. But, so the opportunity is for everyone else. It's not an opportunity for them. They're going to get it. Parashat is always from Shamayim. When someone gives tzedakah, they're not giving, they're receiving. That's something we have to understand. Because the homeless, the poor, the Talmid Chacham, whoever you're giving it to, he's going to get it from Hashem anyway. Hashem doesn't need you. That's what we have to remember. And like we said last week, since we're in a generation of the Mashiach, Chazal says in the Gemara, Mashiach is not going to come until everyone's broke. So your money's not going to be worth that much anyway. Might as well use it for something good.
Everybody's broke?
Everyone's broke. Money's going to be worthless. Yeah, well, people that have money, it's good. They could use it for good things, but days of Mashiach is not going to matter. It's Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Chanina Omer, אין בן דוד בא עד שלא תכלה פרוטה מן הכיס. מסכת סנהדרין 97 בית. 97 בית. Rabbi Chanina, giant. So now, Moshe Rabbeinu is reminding us of all these things that we did. But he's now also reminding us of all the wars. Went to war with Sichon. Went to war with Og, Melech HaBashan. Went to war with other nations, but here he's mentioning two major wars. First he's saying about Sichon is that initially they came to Sichon and they said they just wanted to pass by, they wanted to do business with them even. But Sichon wasn't interested not only in not letting him through, but they weren't even interested in doing business. And they attacked us. It's an halakha, it's an obligation. When somebody comes to kill you, you have to kill them first. But that also teaches us as Jews about the Torah's nature, and the Jewish nature is never to attack unless we're being attacked. Since we know at this point we have God, and God said, I'm going to give you Eretz Yisrael. Technically, we could say, you know what, we want Israel, we want Iraq, we want Saudi Arabia, we want this one, we want that. We have God. Let's just take over the entire world. No. Hashem says, no. I gave you something specific. And that's all you're going to have. And don't attack anyone that I tell you you're not allowed to attack. The Moabites, the nation of Moabites, you're allowed to bother them because they made some sins, but you're not allowed to attack them. Ammon, not even allowed to bother them. The rest of the nations that are there, if they attack you, you attack them back. That's why you're never going to see, even to this day, us just attacking the Palestinians for no reason. Despite what BBC and the rest, and CNN and all those news stations make it seem like the Israeli army is a nation, is a team of murderers. Complete nonsense. The truth of the matter is that we're always defending ourselves, even until this day. One of the biggest wars that we have is media. The media portrays the nation of Israel as the worst thing on earth. That's why a nation that's smaller than the size of New Jersey gets more media coverage than even America at sometimes. And that's all from hatred. It's not from. It's not because they like us. We're almost done. One of the interesting things that's happening in the world today is what's happening with Iran and President Obama. Iran signed an amazing deal we talked about last week. They get a bunch of money, they get a bunch of freedoms, and so on. Obama pushed this deal, and so on. There's a few videos online with Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, saying this is a bad deal, There's big communities, Jewish communities are getting together and are trying to convince each other to go talk to Congress to stop this deal from happening. Everyone is scared of the weapon of mass destruction that Iran may eventually possess. So there's a few things about this parasha, about both of those things. First thing is in regards to Obama. Everyone's very, very concerned about Obama. I told you guys that when someone becomes a leader, Hashem takes away his free choice. This is actually in this week's parasha. This is chapter 2, verse 30. ולא אהבה סיחון מלך חשבון, העבירנו בו, כי הקשה אדוני אלוהיך את רוחו, ואימץ את לבבו למען תיתו בידיך כיום הזה. But Sichon, king of Heshbon, was not willing to let us pass through it. This is talking about how we want to go through their land. For Hashem your God, hardened his spirit and made his heart stubborn, in order to give him into your hand like this very day. Rambam says God removed Sichon's freedom of choice just as he did with Pharaoh. When someone becomes a leader, Hashem uses them as a puppet. Despite what your feeling is about Obama, Netanyahu, this one, the Iran guy, that guy, it's all irrelevant. It's Hashem. Hashem is moving the parts. If you have something, if you want to worry about something, worry about Hashem. Worry about your relationship with Hashem. Because He is the weapon of mass destruction. Or creation. Depends on your relationship with Him. If you do what He says, it will create the most wonderful things in the world. But if you worry about Congress and mankind and think that President Obama can do something about it, or your silly little community Congress meeting, or this little piece of papers that everybody keeps signing, send this to this one and send this to that one. Okay, you want to do ishtadlut, God bless you. But not above and beyond your prayer. The first thing they should do with Jewish communities is get everyone together and force everyone to pray. Because that's the only hope. Because the freedom of choice that we have, the leaders don't. Which means that they're going to do a bunch of things that we don't want them to. Because that's the only way it's going to force us to wake up on a massive scale. The last thing is Parashat is something interesting, not really related to what we talked about, but just something interesting because I know that some of the mystical parts of the Torah are hard for people to believe in. We tell people that, size of people, giants and stuff like that. This is also one of those parashas that talks about giants. If you remember, we talked about the Nephilim. The Nephilim were in Parashat Noach. They were giants. Then we talked about, during the Parashat where they despised, the Meraglim. They said that in Eretz Yisrael they saw giants. Right? In this Parashat they actually fought a giant. Og, Melech HaBashan. Og, the king of Bashan. He was the last remaining Rephaim. It talks to you, it says the size of Og's bed. They destroyed him in this parasha and his people. But the interesting part is that they mention the size of his bed. And Chazal says that they moved his bed, they showed his bed around as a celebration because it was so huge. כי רק אוג מלך הבשן נשאר מיתר הרפאים, הנה ארסו ארס ברזל. His bed had to be made of steel because he was too heavy and big and strong for wood. היא לו ברבת בני עמון, 9 אמות ארכה ו4 אמות רחבה, ואמת איש. Two things. One is Amah is from here to here. It's from the elbow to the hand. So I just said that it's this. His bed is 9 by 4, 9 amot by 4 amot. That's not so big, right? It's not giant. But Masechet Megillah says that he picked up a mountain and wanted to throw it on the entire camp of Israel. And if he would have thrown it, it would have destroyed everyone. Chas v'chalila. But Hashem put ants that made a hole in the mountain, broke the mountain miraculously, and split it in half. So how could someone that's, based on Amah, being from your elbow to your hand, how could it be a giant that picks up a mountain? The answer lies in the first time that it's mentioned when Og is mentioned. Og is mentioned, if you guys remember, in Parashat Noach. Noach, everyone died, right? Except the Midrash says, except the family of Noach, him, his 3 sons, their wives, but also Og. Og is also mentioned with Abraham Avinu, which means that Og is well over 1,000 years old. Probably lived the longest life in history. In Parashat Noach, when Hashem gives the measurements of the boat that Noach has to make, the Teva, he says he gives them exact measurements. How many amot for each thing. And by the way, they found the Teva and the Mount Ararat in Turkey. There's a video online if you want to see.
Turkey.
But he gives the exact measurements. A certain amount of amot for each thing. But there's one extra word in the description of Og's bed that's not in the Teva of Noach. In the Teva of Noach it says number of amot. But in Og's bed it said amat ish. Amat ish means, number one, it's amat relevant to the person, relevant to Og himself. It's his elbow to his hand. And his elbow to his hand is probably the size of a person in those days, which is drastically much bigger than us. So the amazing part is that one extra word, ish, ama, in Parashat Noach, ama, in Parashat Devarim. Both have ama. But one of them has one extra word after it that it's connected to, and that's ish. And that's what we want to remember for ourselves. The Mussar that Moshe is teaching us is that we have to be connected to Hashem. We have to be remember all the things that have happened to us in the past. Because each word counts. Each word in the Torah counts. Each word we say counts. When we do that, then the last verse of the Torah of this parasha will relate to us, will be relevant to us, which is Lo tiraum ki Adonai Elohechem u'in chalam lachem. You shall not fear them, for Hashem your God, He shall wage war for you. You have nothing to worry about Iran. You have nothing to worry about the United States or Egypt or Syria or this Congress or that Congress. Do what Hashem says, connect to Hashem the way you're supposed to, and He'll fight your war for you. Unless you guys have any questions. Oh Hashem. Bezat Hashem, whoever wants to join me on Sunday to learn Megillat Eicha, it's going to be a very interesting shiur, very different than today. And Bezat Hashem will get even closer to Chazal, to Hashem, to the Torah.